This is Bear With Us podcast.
Well, can we add Gurrrl? I mean, we aren't all manly like you.
Okay. How's this? This is Bear With Us, girl.
No. More like Gurrrl, like a glitter bear.
This is Bear With Us, girl.
Perfect. This is Bear With Us, Girl, where we stir the honeypot with hot topics, body issues, the adult industry.
Fashion, news, pop culture, pup culture, and more.
From the bear perspective.
For and by the community.
I can barely stand it. Get it?
You're unbearable.
Gets me every time. Rawr.
Just waiting for the audience to calm down.
I know. They're just so excited. Okay, so I have this for you. We got this off of YouTube from Yetta. Yetta, thank you for tuning in and watching.
Yetta?
Yetta. I thought it was like a take on Yeti. Like
I'm thinking like Grandma Yetta from The Nanny. She's listening.
Yeah, but it's a guy.
Okay.
But I thought it was like the Mighty Yeti. You know, I thought it was a little play on that, but it's not. So Yeti says, here's an episode I'd like to see. I think there's a misperception that all bears are really grossly overweight or obese. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Teddy is gorgeous and in perfect shape. Does that make Teddy an otter, a cub? This episode really made me think about getting on a dating site this year. If I want a bear like Teddy, do I say looking for a cub or looking for an otter or maybe some other term I've never heard of? It's kind of complicated. Help.
Well, first off, I identify as a man-bear pig.
Man-bear pig.
So
okay.
That's my gay
The
animal.
mighty man-bear pig.
I honestly don't think that the animal thing matters as much anymore. I think people do it for fun. Like I have friends who they're like, I want to be a little otter, or I want to be like, I'm a raccoon, or I'm like a muskrat.
What is a raccoon? Because you're obsessed with raccoons. Your Instagram has more raccoons than like people.
It's not a gay animal anymore. It just means you identify somebody would say I'm a raccoon because I'm trashy, so I love trash.
Oh, okay.
And it's cute. Like I know a lot of people who say that they're possums because they're
What's
just
a possum?
they're crazy, they're angry.
That could be every one of my exes a possum.
So honestly, just say whatever animal you really are. Like it doesn't really matter.
But I would say that you're like a wolf.
I guess, but I think just for most wolves I know tend to usually shave their back. So
really?
I guess I'm more of a Sasquatch or
a Yeti.
Or a Yeti, yes.
Yeah.
So Yetta, I am your Yeti. Just say I'm a Yetta looking for a Yeti. And that's how you'll get me.
Now, have you ever gone on a date for somebody that messaged you on Instagram?
About regarding animals or
no, who's flirted with you that actually resulted in meeting up?
Not really, just because also you know me, I don't really date. But I have met up with people. Usually it's for something safe, like a hike, not like a date.
Oh, you're one of those gays. Oh.
I'm one of those gays because it's smarter. I think it's awkward for a person that you don't know yet, go and sit down at a table in a restaurant. Something that is extremely, to me, that's intimate. That's something I do with a really close friend or I'm dating. And that's what weirds me out about dating is that you literally go from zero to basically a boyfriend in a second, and that's not normal. So that's why I think things like hikes, as much as I also hate hikes, I don't like it. It's a safe thing.
Who are you talking to, girl?
It's a safe thing to do where if you realize within 5 seconds, shit, I hate you.
You can push them off the cliff?
No, you can just do things I will focus on being exhausted in this workout. I'll focus on
put your earbuds in.
Yeah, exactly. You just start working out. You start running away from him.
Yeah.
You're
I'll catch you when I come
said
back.
We're going for a hike. It's a very safe thing that you can end very early. You can say I'm tired. And these are all things that you don't go back somewhere together. It's very good, safe out. There's exits everywhere.
Yeah.
The whole world is your exit. There's witnesses.
That is very true. I hate first dates at a restaurant. Number one, you usually go somewhere fancier that you don't usually eat. Hey, if you want to eat at Panda Express, if that's what we're going to be doing as we're boyfriends on our third year, then let's just eat at Panda Express now. Why do that?
But also what's so bad, too, is nothing's worse than when you can tell other people know you're on a first date.
Yeah, and
in my head, I'm they're listening to me saying things like, so when did you come out?
See, that's the same conversation. What do you do for work? Where's your family from? And it's bitch, you don't care. No.
You and I have talked about, I think it would be genius if gay people started bringing little placard cards that already had, here's my bio, here's my history, here's the date times of all my trauma. Here are the ones that I've worked on, here are the ones that I'm not working on, here's the ones I'll never fix. Let's see if we can still work.
See, I quite enjoy that. I've been told by every dating relationship person I've ever interviewed is like, don't do your first date at a bar. Don't go to happy hour. And I'm like, you don't understand. That's a huge part of my life. If they can't go to happy hour with me, it's never going to work out. I don't care if it's like Tom Hardy. It's just not going to work out.
And I actually, as somebody who doesn't really like bars, I think those are good first dates because it's just like a hike. It's very casual. It can end early or it can extend into something else.
You can finish your drink in a gulp and then you're done. You're like, that was great.
Yeah, you're like, that was
you
great.
later.
I got to go. My meter's running.
Yeah, or your friends stop by.
Yeah. Like,
and then you have a foursome. Anyway.
The romance.
The romance. Speaking of romance, the show's brought to you by cybersocket.com, the ultimate resource for gay erotica. You can vote for your favorite adult film star for the Cybersocket Awards. You go to cybersocketawards.com. Lots of fun categories, including Bear of the Year, by the way. So, thank you, cybersocket.com.
And also shout out to our sponsor, Bear World Magazine. Bear World Magazine is now 9 years old. Question, is that updated recently? Is it 9 or was it 8 last year?
I mean, we haven't been doing it for like a whole year.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're saying the right year.
It's eternal.
Yes, forever years old. Yeah. And is the only lifestyle magazine celebrating the global bear community in all its glorious, diverse beauty. Head to bearworldmag.com to check out the great berry content and also sign up for the new Woof Report, their new weekly newsletter packed with berry news and gossip.
I feel like we should do a segment for the Woof Report because we got some good gossip.
I would love that.
Yeah.
We should.
I want to introduce our guest today, Big Dipper. He's a big, hairy gay rapper known for his playful lyrics and pretty raunchy music videos, by the way. Don't watch him at the supermarket like I did. He has released 3 EPs, 1 studio album, a mixtape project, and a handful of singles, plus over a dozen music videos on his YouTube channel, including his viral videos for is it LaCroix? LaCroix? It's that drink. LaCroix Boi and Lookin. He has toured his exciting live shows all over the world and has used his directional and producing eye to create queer content not only for himself, but also your favorite drag queens. And on his own podcast, Sloppy Seconds with Big Dipper and Meatball, his thoughtful and honest interviewing style asks all the most probing questions from comedy, warmth, and unmatched vulnerability. Please welcome Big Dipper.
Hello.
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 That was a fun little trip down memory lane looking at all those photos.
What to tell you, I remember getting the PR blast when your new video came out, and the first time I checked, it was like you were doing this before it was cool to be body positive, to kind of be like addressing sexuality full and foremost, and not being embarrassed or ashamed of it at all. And this was happening for years. Is it funny for you to see this kind of like focus now on body positivity and inclusion?
I mean, I think it's kind of a thing that happens in general for queer artists is like we are always ahead of the curve. I know so many of my friends that I've come up with in the club scene who are DJs or make music, and especially drag queens. They've been doing this forever. And now, it's New York Fashion Week right now. You look and it's like, oh, these are people that I remember hanging out with in clubs. Now they're front row at fashion shows because it's like cool to have queer people around. Yep. And I don't know. I think it's just like the way of the world, and as the tides of culture, push forward, people who are in the underground, what they were doing becomes more mainstream.
I mean, but do you feel like as being one of the forefront runners for it, do you feel like you get the respect and the admiration for being one of the ones who helped pioneer and start? Or do you think a lot of people still will be like, who is that? Like, what did he do? Not knowing what you did do.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really, I honestly don't even see it that way because I never set out to do anything. The first time I made a song and the first time I made a video, it was like on a whim. It was a complete joke. And so
Which song was that?
My first song was called Drip Drop, and we like sample a musical sample owned by a very large children's fantasy conglomerate that also owns a television network, and I don't like to bring much attention to it because I never got sued, and I'm very thrilled that I didn't get sued. But we sort of like flipped that melody, and it was somewhere close to parody, also just sort of like a sample. And that was completely on a whim, and I made that song, over a decade ago with friends of mine. I was working, I was like doing performance art stuff in Chicago in the nightlife scene, and my friends had like an electronic band, and I approached a friend of mine. I was like, "Can you make beats?" He said, "Sure." We made one song. It took me 9 months to finish the first song because it was such a back burner idea. And so I've really, as an independent artist, I have learned on the job. I never sat out to like, I never sat down and made a plan of this is how I'm going to go viral. This is, I think social media is such a institution now that people can literally, before they ever post anything, can come up with a brand, an idea, a way to present videos in a viral way and sort of manufacture a career. And I never did that. My whole, I basically just put everything that was coming to me in my head out into the world on the internet, and enough people paid attention where 10 years later I'm still able to like perform and make videos and express myself.
And you really have made a career of this. I would be, I don't know how much trepidation you had when you first posted it, because once you put it out there, it was going to be out there. Your certain style, your approach to being a gay personality, your approach to being open about sex. I always ask openly queer artists, was there ever that choice? You're like, God, I wonder if this is going to limit my career in any way, if I could be this, mainstream hit, or I'm just really going to do this and be who I am.
Well, I mean, like I said, that first song, there was never a strategy. So I felt like I went to school for theater. I wanted to be a theater director. I was really focused on that. So I was living in Chicago at the time. I was working in the theater scene, and I discovered this like underground of queer performance art. I was in a dance trio with two of my friends, and we would sort of do this like gender fuck dancing in heels, like kind of half drag, not really any makeup, but it was all like cross-dressing and really playing with like power and movement in the middle of a nightclub. And we started doing that, and I felt so free. I remember one time we were making a piece, and my friend was like, well, then we should like strip off another layer. And I was like, well, I guess I'll go shirtless. And when I did it in front of the crowd, the way the crowd reacted, not only did I feel incredibly free, but I noticed that people responded to it. And so that really sort of like birthed this confidence that I had a currency that I hadn't really seen other people sort of using, especially when it comes to like making music. And when I make music, when I make videos, the visual element, I'm like, I'm a silly and goofy kind of guy, which I think is my favorite thing about a lot of people on the internet is when they take themselves really seriously and then they make a post and they're like, actually, people don't really know that I'm a really silly and goofy kind of guy. Do you ever find this? Maybe in porn? Do you ever find this? When people go like, my real self, I'm a really silly and goofy kind of guy. But I have a campy aesthetic.
Yeah.
And so initially when I was making stuff, there was a little bit of a there was a camp factor to it. There was like a tongue-in-cheek factor to it. And I think a lot of people were laughing at it. And then they started laughing with it. And then I was able to just sort of keep going.
Do you think
I could have stopped really early on and been like, this is just a one-off music video. But I got so much joy, and it unlocked so many things in me as a performer.
Did anybody ever try and tell you to tone it down?
No.
Oh, good.
Yeah, a lot of people
you just ignored that because you're like, I'm not doing this for you, I'm doing it for me.
Right. And I was doing it in the community. Again, I never like made a demo and contacted a record company. Yeah. I never like attempted to get an agent. I've never done anything like that. All I do is do it for myself. And so me and my friends would make them videos. I would call another friend of mine who was putting on a party. I said, can I perform? It was always sort of an inside job. So I never really felt, some people are like, that's messy. You have bad taste. This isn't good.
You're like, but that's my brand.
You're like, you're welcome.
Yeah.
as they
and
like
I'm
watch it
just
again
like-
and again and again.
I just go like, oh, well, it's not for you. That's fine.
I want to talk to you about kind of this body positivity chat. You know, you said like taking your shirt off. I have to tell you, me getting into the entertainment industry, I've gone on so many crash diets. I've had to, you know, I've tried to hide my weight gains and losses with so many different types of clothes, thinking that I'm fooling the world, right? In essence, kind of fooling myself. The idea of, hey, you know what? Your video is going to be a big hit. You're going to have to take off your shirt, whatever. That terrifies me to no end. And so that moment of liberation, if you can kind of talk about that a little more, I mean, there's no going back from that, and it's really a celebration of who you really are, and like having not to conform to something. Do you still deal with that kind of back and forth? It's like, oh, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's very funny because I remember in that moment, I really did feel like I said something was opened up, and I felt really excited to do that again. So I remember when I started making videos and doing photo shoots, I was very eager to be like, let's do a lot of like nude illusion, hold this in front of my crotch, do whatever. But you know, I have been propositioned many times to make porn, to sort of do the full Monty, to start an OnlyFans, and that to me is so personal that I'm sort of like, I'm saving something for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that makes me completely nervous. Like in a romantic situation, like stripping everything away and being fully nude. When I'm on stage and it's a costume and it's a gag, or it's you didn't expect me to have like, you know, this Speedo with a, you know, dog's nose on it or some stripper outfit. Like those are things that I feel excited about because I'm like in control, and it does, the more and more I do it, the more sort of commentary I realize it's offering in society, that, you know, you don't go and see Magic Mike and one of the guys looks like me. So I'll give you that at the club. I'll, you know, it's very rare that I do a show where I don't end up in a thong.
Exactly. I mean, what I'm looking at you right now is the most clothes I've ever seen you in. Like I've only known you with your shirt off,
and I'm only wearing a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Oh my. Now I have to say,
yeah, it's not, I mean, it's not about like, I'll also equate this to go-go dancing. People have propositioned me to go-go dance before, and I've done it twice, or I did it once in New York. It is the most nerve-wracking thing I have ever done as a performer, because you're not in control of how people are seeing you, or what they're seeing you, or when they're seeing you.
I would be so
As
terrified.
a performer, you have like a specific, this is your stage time, these are your backup dancers, this is the soundtrack. As a go-go dancer, you have to be just so confident, and like, I'm up here and you can look at me any which way you want. And I mean,
and people are trying to grab you during it, and you're trying to like still stay on stage, not fall off, not have them steal your money. There's a lot of factors.
Do you look out and see people just looking at you and then whispering to one another?
Oh yeah, especially like back when before I quit dancing in West Hollywood, I would have it a lot because they would always point at like my back and they would whisper, and like I used to tell myself like I'm confident enough about it, but like it really affected me to the point where I just finally just stopped dancing in West Hollywood because I was like I can't do it. It's not fun having people literally just point and stare as if you're like, I have eyeballs and peripheral vision.
Right.
Like I know what you're doing. I'm not stupid.
Did you ever think they were pointing because they thought you were hot?
No.
But they could have been.
They could have been, but like it is one of those things that just I don't know, to everybody out there, don't do a whole point thing. Because,
okay, but
like,
you know what? I'm guilty. Number one, usually when there's go-go boys around, I've usually had a few, and I love go-go boys. I love the whole aesthetic. I love the sexiness. I love the not being nude, but you know, and the movement and the lights and all that. And I have never, and you know what a bitch I am. I have never. I will look at a go-go boy and I will point, and I'm going to stop pointing, but I have never said a disparaging comment. I've never said, oh, that go-go boy should not be dancing. I've never said that. Every time I've pointed and whispered to my friend, it's always been like, wow, he's fucking hot.
Well, then I'll tell you this. I would say 99% of everyone who's out there doing it has their own insecurities, that when they
100%.
that when they see you pointing, even though I know that you are actually like one of the few that's nice, in their head they're creating a narrative telling them, being like, he's saying I'm not fit enough, my dick's not big enough, or I'm bad dancer. They're literally saying all these negative things in their head That just like, yo, you said maybe they're actually thinking you're hot. You've created this whole narrative that like you just shut yourself down. And that is what go-go dancing is for 4 straight hours of you literally being like, I'm a piece of shit. I'm ugly. Everyone in this room is literally pointing at me and being like, God, he fucking sucks.
This is what I'm saying. That is stressful. Like, at least when I'm performing, I know I'm like, I've got something to do. I've got lyrics to yell into
And then
the
I can leave.
microphone. I've got to remember my choreography, and then I get out of here. If someone wants to say something nice to me, then come meet me at the merch table. That's it. I'm done.
Now, talk to us about your experience with the bear community. You know, we've had a lot of listener comments, and we've had this conversation many times as to what makes a bear a bear. What exactly does the bear community, being a part of it, mean to you?
Well,
and I'd really like to know, what is your opinion? So what is your definition of a bear?
Yeah.
We should start always asking people that.
Yeah.
it's really tricky to me, because my understanding of the bear community is that, you know, it was started because a lot of people, like as any gay thing was in San Francisco, because a lot of people were feeling left out of certain other communities, were feeling they would walk in and they had no sort of sexual currency, and people would ignore them because they were overweight or covered in hair, et cetera, et cetera. So that is my understanding of like the birth of the bear community. But like anything fun and cool and interesting, like, it's been gentrified in this way. I mean, that's probably the wrong and problematic word to use, but it has been co-opted, because now, you know, you go to like circuit parties that have bearded people on the cover or on the poster, and everyone you see there, I'm like, wait a second, you guys just forgot to shave. That's it.
It's not even a full beard. It's literally 5 o'clock shadow.
And then they get Bear of the
like,
Year.
Devil's advocate, Teddy, like, where's your pot belly? You know what I mean? Like, there is a moment that people in both ways. Like, I also know people, you probably see very smooth people who you're like, you don't have the fucking back hair trauma that I have. And it's that's why I think it's tricky, because it was started as a place to bring people together who didn't feel like they had a place, and then it started excluding a bunch of other people. So now that the community like opens up and more people are invited, it's just sort of the same shit you get anywhere else. And that's why I think the conversation we were having at the beginning about the whole animal thing, it's kind of over at this point.
I do believe that, but I also see there's this huge division when the bears have their events. Like we know IBC, which is International Bear Convergence, is coming up.
Right.
And bear parties, it's so bear-centric, so there's no inclusion. In fact, I go, and because I'm not like the typical bear energy, I usually feel out of place. I have lost emceeing gigs because I don't really subscribe to, you know, I'm not going to be there in a harness with no shirt on. And I'm not like, you know, have hair everywhere. And so it's isolating.
But can you do the smirk?
What's the smirk?
Oh my, you have to tell them about. Yep.
What's the smirk?
So bears do not, in Instagram pictures, we do not smile. We will never give you a. Bears do the whole.
You're confused. So from your eyes up, you're confused.
You can do one eyebrow can go up, and it's a smirk. It's the.
And then your mouth is doing Katie Holmes's half smile from Dawson's Creek.
Oh God.
Yep.
I love this. I'm gonna have to start using this.
It's like, no, if you literally look up bareface, there's like 130,000 hashtags on this.
I'm gonna have to.
I guess I'm cute now.
Yeah. I didn't know I'm sexy.
Yes.
But even if there's talk of body positivity, I don't see the integration from either side. You know, if I were to go into, you know, West Hollywood and perform on stage and take off my shirt, I'm sure everybody would cheer because yay, body positivity. But if I were to walk into the bar without my shirt just as a patron, you know, West Hollywood, that has not changed at all. So that wouldn't change at all. But also on the flip side, going to the Bear, you know, it's so isolated because it's really established this kind of environment. It's every bear party I've ever been to is a bunch of, you know, hairy guys lounging around the pool or wearing harnesses. Like that's.
But I do think though that if we started doing more bear events together, I think you would become known in the bear community, and I do think they would accept you. I just think they just don't know you yet.
I know.
Girl, do you know who I am?
I know. No, this is a really good point, because it's like with every community, if you are actually a part of it, then it doesn't sort of matter if you don't check all the boxes,
Yeah.
right? Because you're a part of the community. It's an interesting thing. The last kind of 2 years when I first found out about the bear community, it was in my early 20s because I was really not confident about my body, really not sexually experienced. I wasn't exploring anything. I wasn't doing anything. And then I realized I was like, oh, there's a whole group of people that find what I'm doing or what I look like attractive.
Mm-hmm.
This is good. So then I started exploring the bear community. And I got to tell you, I turned down so many sexual advances from people who were not bears because I had convinced myself that only other bears would be into me sexually.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, they're hitting on me, but it must be a joke, or there's no way,
or it's a
once
trap,
they get
it's a
me
trick.
naked, they'll realize they've made a mistake.
So if I can just piggyback off that, I have been in that situation. You know, people that I'm typically attracted to, and I have said no because I don't want to be fetishized, and I still don't want, like in my mind, it's like, oh, I'm not really a bear, you know what I mean? And so I've said no just because I don't want somebody to date me just because I'm Latino. Like I don't want that,
Right.
you know. And so I've said that, but that's very interesting that you kind of had that, and I haven't gotten the comment because I don't date bears. I happen to not find bears my sexual, priority. And there's nothing that I can do to change that. I can meet some, it just, we've talked about this. What are you instantly into? And that's just not something. And I've been disparaged. It's like, oh my God, you're a self-hating bear. It's like, no, this is what I'm into or what I'm not into. Just like you see a big bearish guy with like a skinny guy because that guy is into chubbier people.
Mm-hmm.
My new favorite thing is like the last couple of years is alternate body types or like complete opposites.
Yeah.
It is so fascinating to get in bed with someone who has a totally different body than you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, two people with my body type, do you know how much heavy breathing, how much extra air we need to turn on in the room? The sheets are drenched with sweat. We're trying to do the geometry of like, do you lift the belly over the ass or tuck it under?
And that needs to be a strong ass bed. Like,
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you get like a lovely, like skinny little eager person to come over and you're like, wow, this is fun. I've never like interacted with a body like
I've had the same thing like the past few years. Like I got to discover that like I love interesting contrasts.
yeah.
Like even with filming, like people always assume like, oh, you probably only film with hairy guys, and that's not true. Like
No.
I loved in a film with like, tight, smooth guys, because then all of a sudden I get to look at myself where I'm like, ooh, I look hairier now.
Right.
This is so fun. It's such a cool like the contrast next to each other.
But I've never seen you with somebody that's not like a muscular fit person.
That's not true at all. You can literally log on.
Girl, I watch your stuff.
$10 a month.
Plug it.
and-
Plug it.
Yeah.
Wait, let me ask you. I got hit on with these two sentences, and I want to say them to both of you
Okay.
and see how you each individually respond. He walked past me, and he sort of tapped me, and I turned around, and he reached in and he put his hand on my stomach, and he said, "Wow, you're huge."
I would run out of there. I would cry. I'd order chicken nuggets, and I would call it a day. I would be traumatized.
I mean, he clearly is saying that he has a fetish, so he's now fetishizing you. So that depends on probably what mood you're in. If you're in the
Right.
if you're in the mood to be fetishized in that moment, you would love it. But if you're not in that mood, that is a very quick way to insult somebody. So he was gambling there. So I want to
He was
ask,
gambling.
did he win or did he lose?
He did not win because he leaned in. Because I think it would be different if he had touched my shoulder
Mm-hmm.
or my chest, but he touched my belly, right?
Yeah, because that's a safer way to say
We're
you're
still
huge.
sensitive about our no matter how much confidence or body positivity, there's always going to be, some.
decades of chubby boy trauma. Yeah,
That's exactly no, but that's exactly what I mean. Especially when you're somebody like me that's tried to hide it for so many years, or gone on a crash diet, lost a bunch of weight, been validated by everybody around, like, wow, you look great right now. And then, okay, the next month it's going to be gone. I mean, and so you're right.
Okay.
It is that chubby boy trauma. Having to buy husky pants with your school uniform, girl, that in itself was trauma for a lifetime.
So part two of it, I was like, oh, okay. Like I said something innocuous, not one way or the other, because I wanted to see where to go. And then he leaned in into my ear and he said, how much do you weigh?
Oh,
And I was like, okay, that's,
No.
we're done.
Yeah.
No.
And just like
But yeah,
just like you said earlier, he could have saved it by doing something like grabbing your pec and saying
Yes.
you're huge. Where in his head, he's still saying his way, but he's letting you be able to choose how you receive it. He could have
Yes.
he could have did it a lot smoother, and then you can still ask how much do you weigh while feeling like your bicep, and it still feels sexy without him grabbing your belly and just staring at your belly.
That's actually very funny because I've had boys that like rub my chest and I love that and I get super turned on, or they rub my ass and like there's that energy. It's like I know it's because like I'm a bigger guy, but to that point.
But you get to choose how you receive it, and that's a better way to do it.
They can also say, "I love your body."
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
they
see,
can
what's
say
wrong with
all
that?
of these things that aren't these like weird. But again, you can't expect the world not to trigger you. I also, at the exact same, like shortly before that man came up to me, someone, I forget what, a lot of people had their shirts off at this place, and I may have, I don't know what it was. Someone, I forget what the exact case was, but the guy looked at me and said something, and I sort of shrugged it off, like maybe he complimented me. And then he like looked back at me and he was like, "It's okay. You should feel good about yourself. Be confident." And I was like,
God.
in my mind, I'm like, I did that because you were being cheesy and gross, and I was uninterested in talking to you, not because I'm not confident.
See,
Well, I had
it's that energy that they think that they're better because like, oh, I'm gonna be with a chubby guy. Like,
I'm
oh,
gonna
thank you,
save
mother.
this- Yeah.
Thank you. It's like, thank you, Mother Teresa.
Well, like I have a friend who he had something come up to him, and the person literally, because he had his shirt off, the person said, "I love how confident you are."
Girl.
And he literally said, he was like, "Would you ever go up to a skinny person and tell them I love how confident you are?" And the person was just very quiet after that. It's like, that's not a compliment to be like, "You're so brave.
Yeah.
You're
Oh.
so brave."
But I feel that is a conversation that's had, like talking about body positivity, like a skinny, like it's like, oh, aren't they brave? Like they're a Victoria's Secret, oversized model. They're not oversized; they're normal size, but that's what's called. And like when somebody like a gym bunny from our community, applauds us for being so brave, it's still very condescending to me, and it doesn't have a great energy. It's like, I have a black friend too. Like it's that kind of the situation.
And it's also tricky because it's exactly what we said. You cannot expect the world to not trigger you, and you also can't expect people who are actually trying to pay you a compliment, however ignorantly, to like know that you're going to be full of trauma. So it's a tricky place, especially in that like body positivity, because okay, so I put out this music video a long time ago. Or not a long time ago, a couple years ago, called Lookin', and it's a car wash video.
I love
it's
it.
just like full of every sort of type of body type, and most of us are half clothed, right? And I reached out to a ton of people, but when we were casting it, there was a lot of conversation about, I was kind of new to LA. I'd been here for like 2 years. There was a conversation about getting actors, and a lot of people who like worked in nightlife were already on covers of posters, had big social media followings. And I was like, no, we're not doing it, because in addition to celebrating all types of bodies, I wanted to celebrate all types of people. So like there's a professor, a photographer, my friend who works in like social services, like all different types, someone's boyfriend who got dragged along. Obviously there were some performers and dancers, but the whole point was we really want to celebrate all types of people, not just all types of people who are putting themselves out there in the public eye. And that was an experience where people felt like really freed on the set, like they had a really good time with it. And when I was doing like press for the video, there was a lot of conversation about, oh, so you set out to make a body positive anthem. And I was like, actually, I wanted to make a dance song that would catch on. And then when we were talking about the music video, I just kept bringing up like this Britney Spears reference. And then do you remember in the Dukes of Hazzard remake, Jessica Simpson was like washing the
100%.
car? In her, I was like, that's what I want to do. And so that was the whole point of our vision board, was like, how do we get you to wash a car in a sexy way? And so for me, it's always like, I'm just trying to emulate these already traditional pop culture ideas. We've just never seen them on a body like me. And it sort of comes inherently with like a little bit of like, this like messaging. But for me, I'm just like, I want to feel my fantasy. Like, I spend all my own money on my music videos. Like, yes, I make money as an artist, but ultimately this is a passion project. So I'm like, I just want to have fun.
What's funny is like you put normal looking people in the video. It's like, oh, this, you were on such like a mission. You're like, no, this is what people look like,
Right.
And that's funny because Andrew Christian did a car wash video as well, and of course we know Andrew Christian typically has not been very diverse, and so I love that it was kind of like, yeah, this is what normal,
But like
everyday
I
people
feel
look.
like when people say things like normal everyday looking people, I'm like, you're starting to be insulting. Like example, like I have had guys that I filmed with that, like what you were asking me earlier, that quote unquote are not the type of bodies that like you're used to seeing. And I've had people comment and like, oh, it was so nice to see like a regular person or like this. And in my head, I'm like, you're being offensive because like to me, I still think they're hot. Like I obviously think they're hot. I just fucked them. But like
What kind of videos do you make?
And how can I be in one? No, but
I'm saying like
let's be honest.
when they say things like they look like a regular person, this I'm like, you're basically saying that they're not hot or that, and I think that's offensive.
Now let's look at what videos get the most traffic.
But that also is true. Like just how you say you haven't seen it, you have. But if you look at the algorithm, you missed it because
I mean, I literally watch all your stuff. I don't remember any of that.
Hello, like that's the entertainment industry. They put symmetrical looking faces, with easy to palatable, whatever. Like that's the whole vibe. The theme that I think that we keep hitting on in this conversation is like unintentional insults.
Yeah. Well, and we
no matter what we're doing, you're always going to step in shit.
Well, I think we've really learned about unintentional insults or like wrong things to say, especially with the focus on the trans community. I remember even 4 years ago, I was making totally inappropriate jokes, thinking that I was being inclusive of the trans community by calling each other certain slang words or. It's so inappropriate. It makes me shudder looking back. But at the time, that's how we were being inclusive by
also that dialogue around language has evolved so quickly because of technology. And, I think when it used to take 3 or 4 years for someone to say, oh, we in general don't say that anymore. Now it's like one article on Bustle,
that's exactly
3
right.
influencers posting about it, and one person getting canceled on Twitter, and all of a sudden the entire zeitgeist has changed, which ultimately is a good thing. But again, if you're not constantly plugged into the fucking matrix at the vein, like you will end up stepping in shit, and you will say like, oh, I didn't know, you'll go to a bear event and oh, I didn't know you could be at this bear event. Oh, well, everyone could be at this bear event. Oh, it's inclusive. Oh, this. Oh, but the labels. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, we just got to be nice to everyone. You got to, consensually fuck the people you want to fuck and have a good time, because the labels make things tricky.
But it's also having these conversations like we just had. We just had probably one of the most honest conversations I've ever had about the bear community and sex. And this is, we shouldn't be afraid to say how we feel. We shouldn't be afraid to ask questions. We shouldn't be afraid to question other people as to their motives or their insults. Lord. Okay, I want to take a look at Back Up Off Me, because I really want to. I want to show our audience exactly your kind of energy and your presentation.
Give a taste.
Yeah, give us a little background of Back Up Off Me.
Okay, so Back Up Off Me is a song that I never would have written when I first started making music, because like I said, I'm a fun and silly guy. I'm sort of a happy-go-lucky, campy aesthetic. But after doing this for a while, plenty of people have things to say. And just going back to our go-go conversation, like, you put yourself out there, you run the risk of people having opinions of you. And sometimes you can be right there in the room while they have opinions of you. And so I try to not carry a lot of beef with me, and I don't really hold a lot of, I don't have a lot of people blocked, and I don't, have grudges. But there have been some instances in my career where I just felt like, just fucking leave me alone. I'm not doing anything. We can coexist in our own lanes. We don't have to be best friends, but just like take a step back. And so that's really what this song was about. And I had never really done a sort of fuck you anthem. And that's really where this came from. And we shot this video like 2 weeks before lockdown in 2019 at the Eagle in LA.
I love it. So let's take a look at Back Up Off Me.
Too far from perfect, not your ideal. Nobody's role model, fully fuck how you feel. I want your trouble, yeah, and we could fight. This beef is forever with no end in sight. I'm done with all you whack ass tricks. Too much confidence, but can't do shit with that dick. Fucking done with your fakeness, two faces, bullshit and dumbass, I'ma throw you in the basement. Sick and tired of the empty talk, hot air, bitch where, motherfucker, how are you a millionaire? This right here is DIY and it's all mine, so step the fuck off if you would be so kind. Back up off me, give me space. I hate your fucking guts and your stupid ugly face. Back up off me, give me space. Phony fucking copycat. You trace. Back up off me, give me space. I hate your fucking guts and your stupid ugly face. Back up off me, give me space. Throw you in the dumpster, you're a fucking waste. You want trouble? I'ma give you trouble. Been too good for way too long. Boxer briefs, but a rock a thong. Your daddy wish we didn't get along. Too bad, man. Been told before I'm not the one. Fuck that noise, I'm tons of fun. Body big, come get you some. Oh yeah, I'm bad. Make the haters love me. If they don't, I pay them dust. If I fuck with you, you're lucky. My whole shit about to bust. Think that you're above me? My hustle never ended. You ain't shit, dick riding. Whoever ascending. Spreading fallacies. How you never heard of me? You got clocked. It's a chop. Storytelling and it's perjury. I was raised right. My pleasantries ingrained. So fuck you very much. And have a nice day. Back up off me. Give me space. I hate your fucking guts and your stupid ugly face. Back up off me. Give me space. Phony fucking copycat. You trick. Back up off me, give me space. I hate your fucking guts and your stupid ugly face. Back up off me, give me space. Phony fucking copycat. You trace. Back up off me, give me space. I hate your fucking guts and your stupid ugly face. Back up off me, give me space. In the dumpster, you're a fucking waste.
Okay, crowd.
Okay, crowd.
Okay, budget. Okay, we see you.
Budget.
How much did it cost to make that, if you don't mind me asking? Because, like, that, well, no, you can ask. That's a real music video, actually. Like, I'm used to seeing a lot of my friends make, like, videos where I'm like, okay, that's cute. It's a little iPhone. But, like, that was a video.
Yeah.
So, like, that cost something.
And that cheer squad, too.
I think I spent like 15 grand on it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like, damn.
And it's definitely a far cry from your musical theater days.
Well, there was a 5, 6, 7, 8. I did have to learn choreography. And Tom Pardo, who's one of the dancers in the video.
I know Tom, yeah.
Who is like amazing, danced with fucking Bob Fosse back in the day. So
shit.
it is a little musical theater 5, 6, 7, 8.
What I do love, and this is what I wanted to play it, was because it is very gritty, and we see like that real like forceful aspect of you, and there's this power and dominance and the sexiness while making a statement. And I think videos like this are very powerful. Now I will tell you, as a freelance journalist, I get press releases all the time, and I remember when this press release came out for this video, and I know certain publications were like, oh no, this is just not appropriate for a crowd, when they would have played a drag queen singing those same lyrics in a heartbeat. And to me, I hate seeing the behind the scenes of that disparity, and that's part of what happened.
So, are you basically saying that he needs to become a drag queen if he wants to have it?
What I'm saying is,
welcome to the modern age. Any young queer person who has a creative bone in their body, they think, I gotta do drag. That's the only way I'll become a mainstream celebrity.
Have you done drag?
No. We did, so on my podcast Sloppy Seconds, we did Dragula, recap episodes for season 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the promo of that, Meatball and I dressed up like the Boulet brothers.
Yeah.
And they did my face. It was mostly Gabriel, the photographer, who did the face in post-production. But there was an attempt made to put me up in drag.
I love Gabriel, by the way.
But no.
But I think that is a good point. It's like, we feel like drag is now the highest bar. And it's like, there's so much entertainment that's happening.
Well, like, that's why I'm, like, not to, like, promote, but also to promote, like, the Go-Go show that I did.
Yeah.
Go-Go for the Gold. I'm actually excited about that because, like, that's another side to the gay, nightlife industry. It's not just drag queens. Like, there's this whole other world that, like, we need to start talking about so that it doesn't become this thing of, if you want to be a gay entertainer, you have to be RuPaul's drag queen, or
you have to be snapping all over the place.
Exactly.
Well, this to me I find really interesting because also in the last couple of years we have, the visibility in the music industry has gone crazy because hello, Lil Nas X is like holds the record for the longest #1 song, like is an incredibly successful artist and is an out queer person of color at such a young age. Like that's an incredible feat, but there's something about it where because he's so famous, even though he is like very visibly queer and trolled for it constantly and like turns those trolls into like his content and his memes and is like very vocal about it, it's almost like he's jumped so far from like the rest of us just in the community that I'm like, well, it was a win, but is it really?
Because now it's almost one of those things where like he can do it, but it's
that's exactly right.
But the record label companies are gonna be like, well, no, little Nas can be gay.
We already have that.
Yeah, like there can't be more than one gay person.
Yeah.
It's like how back in the day they used to make it that there could be only one female black artist.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like there could be only one Beyonce. There wasn't allowed to be others. Record labels now are doing the same thing again with, well, we have one queer artist, so then we're good. They're like, well,
and you're like, well, hello, Troye Sivan and Lil Nas X are very different people.
And Shawn Mendes.
They do both fall under that twink category.
Mm-hmm.
To get back to our labels in that category.
Well, and to one of the periodicals that didn't pick up, the PR for your
say
video.
Their name. Fuck you. No.
But they definitely posted Lil Nas video, and to me that was like so graphic that even I was a bit not embarrassed, but like for my mom to have seen that on TV, it's like, oh my God, it was so over the top to me. And I actually am one of the few that actually thinks it does us a disservice when it's so grandiose and it's so in your face, because we know that we're still trying to heal from a very conservative past administration that's still trying to restrict laws for our community. And so I'm wondering if, putting our sexual foot ahead of that and glorifying it instead of having the conversation such as what we're having right now is beneficial.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, one thing I'm not going to ignore is the fact that I am a independent artist with a significantly smaller reach than someone like a Lil Nas X. You know what I mean? Like, I've got 50,000 followers on Instagram. I have been doing this for a while. My name has a tiny bit of recognition outside of people who directly follow me. But yeah, I mean, there's a difference when making the decision: do we post this video of a chubby fat dude or a chubby hairy dude in a thong, or this video of a svelte, muscular dude in a thong? Oh, but he's got millions of followers and the #1 artist in the world. We'll post it. So, but I do also think that conversation about sexuality first it's really interesting, because I think that perspective is sort of, it shifts depending on a lot of variables, like generationally. I think like Gen Xers probably feel that way more than Gen Zers do. I think how people were raised religiously, they really feel that way. Like, I was speaking to someone recently who told me they were raised Mormon and had to sort of like remove themselves from their family in order to just like be themselves in the world. And it took me a second to really click in, like, oh, that's probably why you react the way you do to certain parts of, certain things we talk about. Like, I pick up the phone and call my parents whenever I want, and we have a great conversation about life and my well-being, and there's literally no issue with acceptance. That allows me to be a lot freer than someone who was raised in an extremely religious household and then was fucking turned away. So I think that conversation about what ultimately suits us as a community is, you know, it's really a personal conversation.
We talked about a lot. I'm very excited.
Good. I also, when my video takes over my whole screen, I can't see your reaction, so I just keep rambling. So sorry if I've been long-winded.
No, you're fine.
No, absolutely not. But we have come to the end of another episode. Big Dipper, can you please tell people where you want them to find you and follow you?
Yeah, for more incredibly serious conversation about community and identity. No, normally just a wild and silly, fun little guy. I am on all social media at Big Dipper Jelly. You can, if you've never heard of me before and you want to see more of my, according to Teddy, very budgeted music videos, you can check those out on YouTube. If you just look up Big Dipper Rapper or Big Dipper Gay Bear, they'll all pop up. I have a podcast that comes out twice a week called Sloppy Seconds with Big Dipper and Meatball. This past month we had Coco Peru, Rocco Steele, Raja, and Kelly Mantle. We had a really nice lineup.
That's a good mix.
Yeah, so check that out.
Oh, I love Kelly Mantle.
Yeah, she was a hoot and a holler.
Well, thank you, Big Dipper. Thank you for all of the trailblazing that you have done, and thank you for entertaining us.
Thank you for having me. I much appreciate it. And one thing I want to say about labels before we go is when I first started making music, I put every label I possibly could on me so that people would click the press release because I had never started. And one of the first articles that ever came out about me was in Vulture, and it said a gay bear Nicki Minaj. That was like the byline.
That's awesome.
The subtitle. And I was like, that's what I'm going for. So sometimes, it's
sometimes
like
labels are good.
We like to use those labels in those terms, and then once we sort of get a little more established, we're like, don't label me. Don't put those terms on me. I'm an individual.
Thank you. And Teddy, tell people where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Mr. Teddy Bear at Mr. Teddy Bear Gurrrl, and on Twitter at the XXX Teddy Bear.
Woohoo! I'm Alexander. You can find me on Instagram at AlexanderIsOnAir. And send us your questions, comments. We love reading them at bearwithusgurl@gmail.com. And that's 3 R's. Show some love. We are growing this podcast. Comment, rate, subscribe. All of that good stuff. And we will see you next time. Rawr. That has been another episode of Bear With Us Girl, presented by Bear World Magazine and Cybersocket.com.
Please take a moment to like, subscribe, comment, rate, all the love and support you can give, guys.
Questions, comments, and suggestions? Email us at bearwithusgirl, 3 R's, @gmail.com.
Until next time, embrace the fur.
Grrr.